at NTV.
With 10 minutes to the top of the hour, 8 a.m., we still continue on with Tuesday's affairs here on Morning at NTV. My name is Priscilla Regina Naroga. Glad to be in your company. Now you can stream with us on Facebook as well as YouTube so that you can continue on with the day's conversations. Now, this morning's conversation in our Kickstarter is something that you should interest yourself in, because in one way or another, because of COVID-19, again, we're thankful that we have been able to be interested in tourism as locals of Uganda. Now, speaking of tourism, tourism in Uganda has its roots to when future Prime Minister Winston Churchill visited the nation in 1907 and dubbed it as the Pearl of Africa for its colorful nature. In the late 1960s, Uganda was visited by over 100,000 international tourists each year. Tourism was the country's fourth largest earner of foreign exchange, and the tourist industry ended in the early 1970s, of course, because of the political instability. But by the late 1980s, Uganda's political climate had stabilized and conditions were suitable for reinvestment in Uganda's tourist industry. Now, the tourism sector was hard hit again by COVID-19 because of its nature, as it depends largely on foreign tourists. And with various travel restrictions in the country, the number of foreign tourists reduced to 3.7%, according to an assessment report of 2022. But speaking of 2022, in January, the government fully opened the economy, but the tourism sector is still grappling with the uncertainties as to when the situation will normalize, because currently we do have to overcome the effects of yet another health crisis in Ebola. Now, as we cusp the end of 2022, we need to review the performance of the sector and its challenges that it continues to face. I am joined by Amos Wekesa, who is a proprietor of Great Safaris. Good morning to you, Amos, and pleasure to finally have you here.
Good morning.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting me this morning.
You're most welcome. I'm also joined by the, I should call him Professor, really.
Professor Eric.
Last time I interacted with him, and the wealth of knowledge that he shared with us at the Uganda Wildlife Education Center, for me, it was really, really professional. So Eric Ntalumbwa, you're most welcome. He's the Public Relations Officer at UWEC.
Thank you very much.
I'm also very happy to meet him today again. You know, I saw him as a young guy, small.
Right?
He's now matured. Life changes, and me, I'm still the same.
And you're still the same. Yeah, just a few grades here. Okay, all right. So we come on to this particular conversation at the backbone of something that was earlier shared about in sports, for which you were very aggrieved in regards to how Rwanda is using the little they have to market their nation to the rest of the world. The Arsenal Africa thing. Why are you grieved about that when we have our own potential here?
I can't say I'm grieved. The thing is that I'm in a country that is so beautiful. Uganda is my home. And we have so much potential. But this is a country where everyone protects their image. And we have whether it's a president or of NRM, president of FDC, whether it's us, the local people, we all want to protect our image. But no one wants to protect the national image. We wake up every day just condemning this country. We wake up every day condemning this country. We put out what is wrong. We are, and that's exactly what has killed our potential. And we think we shall prosper when we wake up every morning are talking about what makes us bad. No one wants to work with a bad person who is facing, who is diseased, no one wants to work with a person like that. So if you look at a country like Rwanda, they protect their image. In fact, we should learn something about them. We should learn something about how they promote their country. If you look at, I was in the US 2 weeks ago, and I met them marketing themselves, and they gave me a line of great things they're planning the whole year.
That's Team Rwanda.
That is the Team Rwanda. I was just shocked. And even, you still have other things. 2025, they'll be hosting the World Championship of Cycling. They are hosting the biggest NBA things. They're shining. They're on the t-shirts of Arsenal. They're on the t-shirts of PSG. They're in the US. There is no single week they're not on national news talking about great things of Rwanda. We are not. But at the same time, we wake up every morning to just condemn this country. And we don't understand our poverty. We are only, because of that, we're not able to attract resources. We're not able to attract money. And because we're not able to attract money, Ministry of Health is not able to pay their bills. means of finance is just borrowing. And that jobs are not there. The reality is that if you want to create opportunity, if you want to bring money into the country, you want to create jobs. Jobs are directly related to the market.
Yeah.
The market does not like noise. When you make so much noise negatively about yourself, the market distances itself away.
That's very
The challenge, however, is that we are consuming. Every single day you wake up in this country, we're buying clothes from out. We have externalized expenditure. We are buying cars from Japan, we're creating the jobs for Japanese. We're buying things from China, we are creating jobs for the Chinese. Yet inside here, we're condemning ourselves. We're condemning our tourism that can actually be able to skyrocket our earnings. And I think that's where my challenge with my country is. Yeah. And in fact, if the people in the midst of health understood how to properly communicate, like for example during this Ebola, we should have not cancelled, we should have not lost business as a country. They would have said Uganda is so good at handling this epidemic. We should have said when Ebola came in West Africa, it's Uganda that went to rescue it. We are good at what we're doing. No panic. This should have been the message. But waking up every morning, breaking news, 15 in Nigeria.
Well, we have a public relations officer here. and Eric, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here before we dive into the deepest of our conversation. In terms of public relations, and aside from Rwanda, of course, Rwanda is a class apart example. Which other East African nation do you feel is doing a good job in marketing what they have to the rest of the world?
Well, that is a hard one, but bit appeal. I think Kenya is doing a good job. Yeah, Kenya, Tanzania. I must give credit to Tanzania, the High Excellency and the team in Tanzania. They're also doing a good job. But I think all is not lost for this country. I mean, we're having people, Mr. Wekesa has talked about events being hosted in Rwanda, plans for hosting Rwanda, and Uganda. We are taking up the MICE chapter right now. We want to set up a bureau to start hosting events in this country. Right. Because such big events on a global scale, we should have traffic to Uganda. But also it goes back to, are we ready? We as, let's say, private sector, because government can provide the incentives. And sure, you invest, I'm sure you're having the good incentives, but is there the willingness? Safety has been guaranteed. We're having infrastructure development in this country because we need to start seeing those events. Recently, I was shocked, by the way. We cancelled one big event. There was a pageant, big pageant, with over 60 beauty queens from all over the world coming to Uganda. And unfortunately, somebody didn't reach out to the stakeholders for support. People have come into the country and the event is cancelled. It was the first time Uganda was hosting such an event on a global scale. What does that leave us as a country? Sometimes we need to work together. There's need for cooperation. When people come in with brilliant ideas, work with the different stakeholders, and it was cancelled. That affects the reputation of this country, and it leaves us, at zero, because perhaps future opportunities will be no more. And we need the revenue coming in. We need the media buzz coming in. But all the global, I was reading the news saying Uganda, somebody was, I think, stole, this one was a quack, this was that, and it was about this country. Crazy. It was no longer about an individual. Yeah. So we as individuals also need to be regulated. Okay.
All right, individuals, stakeholders, and then of course the overall, which is government. Really,
even the media.
Even the media.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the media is the fourth estate. We are really amplifying what is being done by others.
Amos is right. The media also needs to work together with the stakeholders.
Because when we're poor, you also become poor.
Because you wake up in the morning and the front line, the front page. Yeah. Ebola, headline, 10 dead. Check another
lockdown.
One, riots. These are accessed online globally. What does that leave for a country? Because we know tourism is a pillar.
Oh, but Eric, you're not telling us to really keep quiet or keep the information in-house so that you can have the tourism sector moving.
How many stories do you get from, for instance, China? Have you read about stories, the COVID stories? Because we know, let's say COVID, badged from China. Yeah. How many stories did you see coming out of China talking about, 10 dead, 100, bedridden? No stories. But we think, as media, we have a right to say as we see it.
No, but let me give you an example of BBC. BBC has got 2 channels. There's an internal channel, BBC, that tells the British how many of them are dying because of coldness. You know, there's a group of people who cannot afford heating and so on and so forth. You have over 20,000 people, 30,000 people who die because of just coldness this season.
Absolutely.
But there's a BBC that tells them about how the challenges they have within. Yes. Then international BBC is to project the British properly. The narrative. They're winning, they're doing this. And then at the same time, it also tells them how miserable Ugandans are. So that they feel nice about themselves. You are
trying to say, Amos, that our neighbors down there should have an internal TV and then they should have an international national broadcaster that promotes the image of the country.
The thing is that we're a country that is still very at infantry, in fact, what if I have to say. Yeah. Mature countries, even if a bomb happened in the US, it is not going to affect the US. The way the way bomb would happen in Uganda will affect the Ugandans. Because Uganda is a mature market. We're not a mature market. We are not at the stage where the world demands us. Because the world doesn't even know about us. But what we're trying to do is, instead of knowing the good things about us, every day we wake up to project what is wrong about our country. Now, internally we must fight each other. We are probably from families. I have a family. Yeah. I am on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. Yeah. How many days do you see me saying, today we had a fight with my wife? No. But we do. We sort out our things internally. You know, I have a challenge sometimes with my own children. Do I come out and say to them, my son said, man, I cannot listen to you.
I am done with this whole sport.
I don't do that. But internally we fight among ourselves, even internally in Uganda here. If there's something wrong, we should fight among ourselves. But the moment you board a plane, the moment you're starting to project something that affects the whole world, project the right image. I, for example, I will never board a plane without having Uganda on my chest. Just yesterday, but on Sunday, Uganda, we won Eastern Central Championship, including my son. My son won the Eastern Central Championship in 250 class. But we went there and fought. The image, the media in Kenya was up in arms saying, all Ugandans are done so well, to the respect we came back with. But then after you have done that, then somebody wakes up and starts making statements that kill the same image.
That kill, okay.
But talk about the person in Qatar, the gentleman who was put donated the Uganda flag. And then you look at the comments, one Ugandan lifting a flag in the World Cup event. And then Ugandans are saying, wow, telling us nothing. Go to hell. You know, like Ugandans.
So we kill our own image. Exactly. Then it begs the question, how do we turn Uganda's domestic tourism into a success? I mean, just looking at the pandemic situation here that we had, if we were to go by these statistics, on the onset of the pandemic, COVID-19, to be exact, the hotel occupancy level declined from 51% in 2019 to 4% in 2020. Understandable because of the global restrictions that happened there within. And then the number remains very low throughout 2021, and we call it, you know, economic recovery. But then in one way or another, everyone is blaming the Ukraine-Russia war. Total number of tourists declining from 1,542,000 plus to 473. Now that's a drastic drop, which is unacceptable for a sector that is contributing greatly to the country's economy. It's very, very disturbing in these statistics. So in your knowledge, is this, and from your different perspectives, are we going to any time move away from these drops in statistics and performance and image that we had created before the pandemic? Let me start with you, Eric.
Well, the pandemic unprecedented. It hit us hard. I'm sure every sector of the economy was hit by COVID-19. But I must say, that was then, and as a country, as an economy, we were not prepared. But of course, there were lessons learned. One thing I know is we're on a road to recovery. Because since 2010, up to date, I know for a fact that our tourism revenues have been on a positive trajectory, 7% annually, 7% growth. As compared to Africa's growth, which is about 9%. Now, this year alone, because I'll give an example of, let's say, UWEC, we have been attracting 385,000 people annually before COVID. Now, COVID comes in, we're going to a lockdown from March to about to August. We're closed, no visitors coming in. Of course, it affects the revenue coming in because it's what we use for the operations, making sure the welfare of the animals is to standard. Now, right now as I speak, 2022, between January calendar year to about June, we are attracting about 290,000 visitors.
Right.
Is that a positive or a negative?
I think that's a positive.
So already that's January to June. I'm sure the remaining months, now we're going into a festive, of course we've had children coming in, our biggest market. I'm sure the number is going on an increase. Look at the national parks. I'm told there's an increase of Ugandans going to national parks. We very well know majority want to go to Queen Elizabeth, Murchison Falls. There's been an increase to about 129,000. Now that is positive. I think people are working together. They've realized Ebola was not for a special group of people. It hit us all. But the synergies, people are getting, I think, the loans, UDP, through UDB, the incentives to ensure they recover. Development partners who are coming in to support, you know, working with the government. UNDP has been supporting this initiative. Mr. Amos Wekesa organized the recent Rwenzori Marathon, which attracted a multitude of crowds. I mean, people coming from all over the country to come and participate, courtesy of UNDP. We have had SEDEP coming in to offer those incentives, tourism development, to ensure people recover, tour operators. We have a lot of tour operators. So I think COVID, it's becoming history as a country. And as a country, as a government, we have gained the resilience that these epidemics, you know, we've faced them. You see Ebola. Right now, we're no longer registering any deaths, which is a positive for government. And it shows the willingness and the desire to ensure we combat such epidemics and COVID-19.
Well, so, Amos is laughing on that very statement right there. And so I'd like to pick his mind as to why he's responding that way.
Has to speak in a certain way.
Again.
But it's
so when you say he has to speak in a certain way, at what point, what is that statement that has caused you to laugh?
No, why I'm saying this is that Uganda's tourism has not started. In my opinion, we have not even touched 1%. I can tell you that if I just give you statistics of our numbers, all our 10 national parks and 12 game reserves combined, in a year, get about 300, and the best time we had was 2019, was 329,000 people. Now, if you compare that to, say, just Masai Mara alone in Kenya, it had 300,000. All their 10 national parks.
So they had your whole national statistics in one park in
one
Kenya.
park. And you can even just see, the Masai Mara alone has 4,800 rooms. Those are 3 times the amount of rooms all our 10 national parks and 12 game reserves combined. Now, Uganda Wildlife Authority, the best earning they had was 2019. 2019, they earned 129 billion shillings. Now, 129 billion. So when Uganda Wildlife Authority has done extremely well in a day, they will be able to collect about 300 million shillings in a day, which is very small money. Now, Gorogoro Creator in a day, Gorogoro, you have heard of Gorogoro?
Yes,
just in Tanzania.
Yeah.
Every day in the gate, they collect $500,000. Every day. They collect
$500,000.
1.8 billion in a day from one national. So one national park makes far much more money than all our 10 national parks and 12 game reserves combined.
Okay.
The other thing that we should also understand is that we need government to put in money to market this country.
Before you leave that point, Amos, so what was the projected 2.5 billion in 2020 in absentia of COVID-19? Where was it projected from for us to believe that having been contributing 1.5, now we can move to 1.6 to, we can now move in 2020 to 2.5 billion?
So I've just given you an idea of adventure tourism.
Yeah.
But it is also, when I come, a tourist, the person leaves place A, goes to place B, spends over 24 hours and less than a year, and should not have a permanent job in place B. So when you leave Kampala, go to Gulu and spend over 24 hours and less than a year, and you have no permanent job there, you're a tourist. So when somebody comes from Kenya and has a business meeting here, they're going to have a conference, is called a tourist.
Right.
That's what it is. When a Kampala guy lives for a barrio in Soroti and spend overnight there, he's actually a tourist. That's what. So the money you spend on food, on accommodation, on transport, on everything is actually collected, summed up as tourism. Now, when the airport has 1.6 million people that pass through it in a year, what Bank of Uganda does is makes an average of $110 per day per person for 8 days, because that's the average number of days somebody spends in the country. So if you have 1.8 million passengers that come through the airport, whether they have come just to stay in Kampala or students, wherever, they multiply that by $110 per day, times 8 days, times 1.8 million passengers came into the country. That's how it's calculated.
Computed.
Now,
Right.
when you look at our national, I'll have one international airport.
Yeah.
That international airport only has, during the best time, which is 1.8 during 2019, if you compare it with even just Wilson Airport in Kenya, Wilson Airport is even busier than our airport. Kenya Jomo Kenyatta Airport is targeting 10 million passengers. That's what I'm talking about right now. Our airport only competes with Mombasa Moi International Airport. Now, if you look at those statistics, they're a bit discouraging. But the reason why those guys are doing better is because they don't wake up every day condemning their country. They wake up every day projecting their country.
Okay,
right.
so let me put you on a tougher one before you come in, Eric.
Yeah.
From what you've shared, Amos, clearly 2019 was an epic year in
Yes,
the tourism
absolutely.
sector, no doubt about it.
Yes.
But that means that there was background work, incentives or policies that were initiated and put
Yes.
into action for 2019 to be such an active year. What were those?
The 1 year, 2016, the government of Uganda spent $1.5 million to get 3 PR farms. One in the UK, one in Germany, and one in the US. Those PR farms, every week, there was guys that came to write about Uganda positively.
Okay.
And only that year that we had a positive growth. Because you see, when you market, and even when you project from the Gorilla permits,
Right.
Gorilla permits of 2016, it almost doubled in 2017 just because of the consistent PR. They got the right PR farms that actually did a fantastic job. But of course, life is not about, they say success is 5% brain, but 95% consistency. So if you do things, you must be very consistent. If you're telling the world what you consistently do, you become good at. If you gossip, you become very good gossiper. But if you market properly, you also become better.
Okay.
So as a country, we lack consistency. There's no proper plan to actually continue projecting this country right. So what I'm saying is that we are very low as a country. You go to Kenya. Kenya has about 5,000 registered tour operators. They call them, they're under Kenya Tourism Association. Then you have what they call the fly catchers. Fly catchers only come in during June to September, then they go back and do other things, then come in December. Those are the 2 seasons we work in. We work 6 months in a year. Now, you find out over 50 companies in Kenya. 50 companies will be turning over what all our 10 national parks and game reserves combined. There are over 50 companies that turn over between $50 million a year to $120 million. Tour companies. And yet you can see that gate collection of all our 22 national parks and game reserves combined is 129 billion. That's what I'm talking about. So for me, I believe that our potential is far much more than any country surrounding us.
Okay.
Now,
All right, Eric, in response, but also in reference to the public image out there
Exactly.
to Uganda.
I think we all agree that we have sabotaged our image across, like we said
and when
earlier.
you say we, who is we?
Ugandans.
But then,
As the media, as the politicians, I don't know who.
when we go back to the question that was posed, it was about, are we recovering after the COVID-19? I think you agree with me that 2019, like you said, we did well, 2019.
Yeah, very well. We're growing.
COVID-19 put us down, we know, on our bended knees.
Yeah.
But 2022, on the road to recovery, I want to believe that.
That's a question. Because as a businessman, I can tell you, I can project for you. In fact, the people that are cancelled were starting to come in. This year, we have only handled the cancelled trips mainly. In 2020, we had so much good business that had been projected. So we had a lot of it, we had to refund the money. Money had to leave a poor economy, go back to the people who had booked. Tourists book a year in advance. Yeah. Now, 2022, we start, June was a good month. July was a good month. We were starting to start growing. And then
Ebola.
We start announcing Ebola every day. We are hitting it with the head. We cancel. Now, when the challenge for tourism is that tourists don't just wake up like me, who thinks about going to Mbale and I go. No, people plan a year in advance, 2 years. People send for 10 years to come to a country like Uganda. But if I have my money to spend, I am not going to go to a country which I am going to get diseased in. A country that's projecting itself badly.
Okay, all right.
So now, June,
before we go past June, because now June is sort of recovering, but still.
No, I'm talking about now.
Let me first have Eric's thoughts on it.
We want to agree that the first 6 months we've been on the road to recovery, like the statistics are shared. Yeah. Now, there comes in Ebola. And that is a setback, because I know for a fact that colleagues in the private sector, got cancellations.
All over.
Because of Ebola. Yeah. Now, that is a setback. But what is the response? How fast we responded to it, I think was the most important. And I think with that, I want to thank the government. How we manage within the shortest period of time as compared to the previous outbreaks. I think of Ebola. You would realize, because of the experience, I think we have gained that experience that the response is fast. However, the question is, how do we handle, I think, the situation?
So let me ask.
This is what we need. We need the same.
And as we discuss this, I mean, Ebola is an epidemic.
True.
COVID-19 was a pandemic, but you still have, you know, the government making it lenient for the tourism sector to still have people coming into the country, and they were giving them real good focus, terms and conditions on how to get into the country, enjoy the country's tourism, and then be able to leave the country
because
with a lot of caution. So why hasn't the private sector picked up on that nature of caution to also, you know, cushion yourselves against Ebola? Because
this is how tourism
next year there'll be something else.
This is how tourism works. You see, I'm a practitioner. I wake up every morning to do this for a living. The tour operator, we deal with what they call a wholesaler. A wholesaler would be like TUI in German or Thomas Cook. Now, Thomas Cook does not listen to me as a private sector. Thomas Cook will now follow the Minister of Health. Will follow what government says.
Absolutely.
Those companies out there listen to what government says. So if a police guy stands up and says Uganda is having lots of criminality, the guy of Thomas Cook is not going to listen to Wekesa saying there are few pockets. No. He will listen to Enanga saying Uganda is dying. Or he will go and look at Jenna Cheng's wall. And now, even if I spend so much of my time telling them, and if Cheng is saying, breaking news, 17 in Najana and Kumbi, 20 in Najana and Kumbi, it doesn't matter what I say. Now, my thinking is that, as Amos, is that we need to put the same energy that we put in when we're announcing Ebola issues, now that it is gone. Now you're going to see people keeping quiet. No one's going to put in the same energy as when they were putting in during the challenge. Countries have to have a recovery marketing.
So unfortunately for you and for us here, again, that energy can only come from government, because you yourself cannot defend yourself against what has not been shared.
Now you're getting it.
I think we're running around the board. The thing is, it's true. We have shown come out strong as a country to combat these epidemics, and timeliness is very important. I think Amos's challenge is, much as we are putting these efforts together, but the narrative, we're having very many voices distorting the message. The efforts are good. We have handled COVID, past tense. We have handled Ebola, gone case, which is very good. But there are many voices. Everybody, I think, wants to be the key player, the kingmaker. And that distorts messages. People tweet here and the other side. And then the question, his question, I think, is recovery. What's the recovery plan? And
how do we harmonize to have one
but we need to agree,
complementary and supportive of every other thing, Team Uganda? All right, it's definitely a deep debate here. Allow me to go into a commercial break. Allow this gentleman to have a glass of water. We'll return shortly. All right, once again, thank you so much for being with us morning at NTV as we dive into our conversation this morning, looking at the tourism sector and the recovery thereof from a pandemic into an epidemic, and yet they're expected to actually rise above the storms and prepare for yet another prosperous, better than 2019, which is by far recorded as the best performance year in the tourism sector. One of the things that, of course, has been alluded to is the bad publicity and the bad image that Uganda has, and meanwhile not contributed to by only government but also opposition, but also you, the Ugandan. When you go on your Twitter and you're bashing your own country and you're posting a picture of potholes, you're doing bad publicity. So while you think it's only your 294 people that have seen your post, but someone else will see that post and say, no, it has if that's what Uganda looks like, then let me go to Kenya, and that averts the traffic of tourism to another destination. We've also looked at externalized expenditure and, why is government allowing things to come in from the other side? Why not greatly invest here so that we can have grooming of things here, but also government support in this conversation. The government of Rwanda is doing a commendable job in supporting the marketing arm so that they can spread the good news about Rwanda. But guess what? They're actually trying to erase the image of the Rwandan war, the genocide war. That's what they're trying to avert. Now imagine how how smart a thinking of that nature is. But I am having Amos Wekesa here with me and Eric from UWEC, and we're having this debate, but we must come to a conclusion of it. Let's look at the budget. Financial year 2021 into 2022 compared to 2022 into 2023 as far as tourism is concerned. I'm of the understanding that you actually slashed then given more money, and yet you are one of the sectors that government ought to be looking to recover economically.
I think what we should understand is that tourism is everybody's business. When I say tourism is everybody's business, let me give you just an example. I've just come from Morocco 2-3 weeks ago. And I met a Minister of Tourism and Minister of Transport, which was talking about the airline, and they're saying we're going to target 26 million tourists. Then I thought to myself, maybe Uganda should target just 3 million tourists. Let me give you statistics of 3 million tourists. An average tourist spends $250, foreign tourists, $250 a day in the country, and spends about 8 days in the country. So to do the mathematics, that's about close to $2,000 that each tourist spends. Now, imagine Uganda targeted 3 million tourists. That means would earn $2,000 times with 3 million tourists. That is $6 billion. That's more than the money we borrow. But of course, we're not going to get $6 billion without investing in the image of marketing. And I always meet some of the leaders, especially Minister of Finance, and I think, are there cheaper ways, easier ways for us to make that without investing? No, you can never make money without investing. Right. Now, my thinking is that when those 3 million tourists arrive, I just want to give you the economic value of it. When 3 million tourists arrive through the airport alone, they'll get $50 per day for visa, per client for the visa, times 3 million people. That is $150 million earned at the airport alone. Then you have another $50 in every ticket that has had the client coming to Entebbe. Another $50. Right. That's another $150 million. So with 3 million tourists, $300 million at the airport will be earned. Now imagine each tourist eating 2 eggs a day. Each tourist eats an average of 2 eggs a day, times 8 days. Those are 16 eggs eaten by one tourist. Times 3 million, you have 48 million eggs. Do the mathematics of farming for eggs. Yeah, from the supply of feeds, the transportation, the jobs, and everything that will be there. Go back to coffee. Every tourist takes 2 cups of coffee every day. 1 cup, that is 16 cups of coffee averagely in 8 days. That is 48 million cups of coffee. Now, go back and do the mathematics. 1 kilo of coffee can produce between 120 cups of coffee to 140 cups of coffee. Do the mathematics. A kilo of coffee, when 3 million people have come to Uganda, you have brought a consuming market. It will go for 500,000, 1 kilo of coffee. And today it's 6 in Uganda. But when the demand comes, the price goes higher, the farmer benefits. That's what I'm talking about. Look at the transport, the accommodation, everything, the shopping, shopping malls, and everything.
So it's a chain economy. It's
everybody benefits.
Then, while you're talking about bringing in those, COVID-19 has also helped the tourism industry appreciate domestic tourism. Yes. The locals, the indigenous person here. And I know that one of the directions the Uganda Tourism Board was wanting to take, if it wasn't for COVID-19, is that they wanted to sort of strengthen the conservation of culture heritage, of regional heritage, so that they can be able to use that to tap into more money coming in here and there. And this is where UWEC would actually fall under in regards to strengthening what you already have as UWEC, because also note, we don't expect the same UWEC of 2019 to be the UWEC of 2022, neither of 2023. So how are you strengthening the conservation, but also enhancement of what you're doing?
I think Ugandans are very special. Talking about domestic tourism, you'll agree with me that Ugandans.
Yeah, but everything is ending with Ugandans.
They're a special breed of people. What their interests, actually, they love to party. They love to have a good time. They love, fun. And that is why you've had innovations around protected areas. People taking silent discourse, visiting Amos's lodge, and they want to have movie nights. They feel we can take this there. And I think as a sector, we just need to diversify the product range and develop the different products, because Ugandans right now, when we look at the cities around, Jinja.
But Eric, you're still speaking abstract. Bring it a bit closer.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Because, for instance, right now, many of them are going to Mbarara, Jinja, coming to Entebbe.
Sese
Islands, Kalangala.
Yeah.
But we need more investors. For a fact, when you look at Kalangala, I think we have about 3 vessels operating, and now we are going to festive seasons. So we need more transportations. We need more.
Remind me the time I went to Karangara, then the vessel broke coming back. So now we had to wait and use the one coming
No, but
from
the private sector has done a good job.
A good job this year.
So if you look at Brovard, you look at
Max Van P.
The Van P's, they've done fantastic. 2 boats. The quality of transport has improved today.
Let me tell you, I was on MV Kalangala.
Yeah.
And trust me, the deck and inside, it was packed because there were no vessels. Now we need more people investing on Lake Victoria. We need to develop the Lake Victoria tourism circuit. Entebbe.
Except we need, you see, Eric, one of the things that we need to understand, that investment follows opportunities.
Absolutely.
When we market this country, the people who are jobless in this country will get jobs. Because in tourism, for example, every 6 tourists create 1 permanent job. That is in developed countries.
Right.
However, in a non-developed country, 1 tourist creates 1 permanent job. Why? Along the chain, there's someone who just needs $50 in order to start a business. That's what they say. If it's here for 8 days and someone earns $50, there's some guys who are able to use that to create something that can permanently, stay on. Now, for Uganda's case, Ugandans, to be honest, have started going across the country, which is a fantastic thing. But also something that I'm also seeing that is growing. Ugandans are painfully starting to understand the difference between politics, the politicians, and Uganda. There's a critical mass growing that are starting to showcase the country. You find this young man in Qatar who went to World Cup, like you were talking about. He's talking about pushing the agenda of the country. Now, if we get more young people starting to understand that politician you don't like, that border guy you don't like, should not make you hate your own country. Because those guys will go away. This country will stay here after all those guys have gone away. So that, for me, also has been engineered by the domestic tourism. COVID, much as it was hard, it actually made Ugandans travel within Uganda. Today you find so many Ugandans sharing pictures of themselves on Mount Rwenzori, on Mount Elgon. But you see, the thing about domestic tourism, it does not bring in money from external sources. No, but it helps Ugandans to learn about their country. It gives them a chance to learn where to invest. It gives them a chance to have knowledge about their country. Right. When you travel, you're able to market your country better because you have traveled within the country. But it is like, domestic tourism is like having money in one pocket and putting it in another pocket. You have removed money from Kampala on the same trouser. You have removed money from Kampala, you have taken it to Mbali. But foreign tourists is like injects fresh money into the economy directly.
Into another.
Yeah, it will be from this guy's trouser, from his pocket to mine, not moving from pocket A to pocket B on his same trouser. Right. That is how it works. Yeah. So for us as a country and as a population, we need to put our leaders. We need to put pressure on our leaders. We need to tell them all these initiatives, if they don't focus on markets, because markets directly create jobs, markets directly create resources. Okay,
let's talk about the visa openness story that we have in the Daily Monitor this morning that shows that Burundi is second in the entire African continent in terms of visa openness. Uganda is lying 30th on that list. You have Kenya 31st. So when you talk about the thing of targeting the 3 million people coming into the country, vis-a-vis the conditions that are present in them accessing visas to the country, it has to be, work.
Yeah, there are 2 things. When I'm a tourist, I'm best say in London, or I'm Ugandan going to the US. When I've wanted to go to the US as a Ugandan, there are 2 things that I'll think about, because the US will have already attracted me, right? I would think about connectivity. If I'm going to go to Dubai, spend 8 hours, then go to Myanmar 4 hours before I reach the US, I will reduce the chances of me coming too. That's why national carrier is extremely very important in this aspect of tourism. Number 2, if it's hard for me to get a visa, I'm a Ugandan and I want to come to America and I cannot get a visa, chances of me going to spend my money in the US are less. But also you see that the Americans, because they have developed their countries, they're putting efforts, they can select and say, that ones, the UK guys have money, let them come without visas. It's tourism, it's business. Us as Uganda, we must also think in that direction. Now, government of Uganda had come up with a very nice online visa payment systems, but it has had a problem, very, very big problem, and it has affected tourism, by the way, during this particular time. Then, on Sunday, I came from Kenya. We just won, we're excited. We arrived on Sunday night at midnight. Then we had a very long line to health. Then some guy in immigration had created another line between the booths, and Ugandans were frustrated. So I went to him and I said, "You man, why do we have 3 lines? You line up for health checks. Then you're also creating a second line between the booths where you get a visa, and you could see people are frustrated at the airport.
Because everyone wants to be a boss.
And he was rude. He was telling me these are the conditions of the airport at midnight. When I came with Uganda, and that's a good question. I hope somebody from Ministry of Immigration is watching this. It was terrible. Because I saw Ugandans frustrated coming back home. It's midnight. People are tired. Foreigners were very angry. These kind of things, I think the airport must be run by professionals at the end of the day.
Okay. All right. Now, in terms of debt recovery and marketing, again, seems to be the embedment of this conversation. For you, Eric, in terms of marketing, what are the marketing loopholes and opportunities that we must tap into if we are going to arrest this sector once again?
I think, sorry, but I'll just take you a little back a little bit, where you asked how Uganda, we're turning domestic tourism into a success. Yesterday, there is a training ongoing for young travel writers, because we want to start a breed of young people who can appreciate their country. A 2-day training, which is sponsored by UTB. But you could tell the passion of these young people talking about their country, the stories they are churning out. And I think our media houses should be offering these people opportunities to tell these stories. Also share them online. It's amazing. You should pass by today. Currently, at UWEC...
Did you just do marketing to Amos right there?
Yeah, of course. currently at UWEC, I'm expecting a lot of people, of course, this Christmas, because I know Ugandans. That's my...
No, so you see, that's the gap I want to bridge, that while you're expecting people, because you are awake, people should want to see an animal or two here and there. Absolutely. What are the intentional plans that you are having to attract more masses or more numbers, or target them for that?
I think the biggest, one of the biggest things we should not underestimate is safety. Safety is key for people in such a season where people want to visit a place and feel secure and feel comfortable. It's what you have to offer. You are not going to drive to any destination when you're not safe at all. So that's why we have the operating measures, the SOPs in place, just to allay the fears of the people, security, to ensure they're comfortable in their country. And that is one. 2, I think this is a time when we have gone through a lot. We're offering discounted offers. We have discounted offers.
No, but I think, Eric, maybe just to speak for you guys, you have put in efforts to actually attract Ugandans. Of course, Uganda Education Center is mainly for Ugandans. And so many schools have done a good job taking kids to learn about wildlife at UWEC. I think management has also done, you guys have done a fantastic job in trying to push that agenda. But we also want foreigners to come, because this country needs money. We are borrowing from external sources.
So this country needs money. There's another gold that we have in this country, the oil and gas sector. How can we tap or marry oil and gas to tourism?
No. When oil and gas starts, and I've been told, for example, the area of Hoima alone, they're going to need 4,500 rooms when they start. Tourism is going to be the biggest beneficiary of oil and gas, because when people make money, what do they want to do? It's leisure, and they spend money in tourism. If you look at, for example, countries like Dubai. Dubai when they discovered oil, immediately went up and created 3 main industries. They created tourism, real estate, and finance. Look at what Saudi Arabia today is doing. They have a lot of oil, but what are they targeting now? As we speak right now, they're building 500,000 rooms in Saudi Arabia today. Today, if you go there, that's what they're building now.
Now, that's my challenge right there, Amos. While they're being projective of what is yet to come or what they have,
they're prepared.
Here in Uganda, how is that being translated?
And that's what I'm saying.
Because now we're not going to wait for oil and gas in 2025 to start coming out, being moved to Tanzania
but it's
refinement, and then you start seeing structures coming up when people have already started to come and make home with Uganda.
But Saudi Arabia has just allocated, in 10 years now, they've allocated $1 trillion. I don't know, Ugandans must understand this. They have just allocated $1 trillion towards investing in tourism. That's why I'm telling you that put this money there. In the US alone, they're using over $20 million to market themselves.
You're under UTB. You're under UTB. So as UTB, how are you tapping or preparing yourself?
No, I'm a private guy. I don't sit on the
I am an advocate.
No, but a clear
in your
manifestation.
advocacy, what are you doing to advocate
First of all,
for
we should
that?
understand that UTB gets almost no money. The amount of money they get, over 70%, is to look after their salaries. It's not money to market a country. Yeah? The highest we've ever done to market this country abroad is $1.5 million. Rwanda is putting on Arsenal and PSG over $30 million. When you tell the guys the Ministry of Finance, they don't get this thing. When you tell them, you guys, if you use $30 million every year to market the country, such that we make $5 billion within the next 5-6 years.
I was in Tilenga, the area of Tilenga. You talked about the oil and gas. There are 3 lodges that have been set up within this year. Interestingly, people are preparing the road that is going through Murchison. People are tapping into the opportunities. Hoima alone, facilities are coming up, hospitality facilities, and I think at the end of probably next year, we're likely to have about maybe 50 or 100 jobs. Because the facilities, restaurants are coming up in Hoima town. I think that is the benefit that people need to look at. Because currently, our jobs, tourism alone, I think I
think what she's talking about was a plan. And I've written about this before. I've said when Dubai discovered oil, what did they do? You know that things like Emirates began in March, 15th of 1983? They had to borrow 2 planes to start Emirates. Uganda had operated, Uganda Airlines had operated for 8 years, right? Now, when those guys discovered these things, they build a national carrier, they build great airports, they actually put so much money in tourism. That, for us, as we're discovering oil and starting in the next 5 years, we need to have a plan. That's what you're saying. Yes. We need to have a plan of saying, how do we then copy from Dubai? Because there are countries like Nigeria. Nigeria discovered oil how many years ago? Over 15 years ago. But Nigeria is a net importer of food. Today, Nigeria's population is about what? 180 million people? Now, they are not investing in other sectors because what was happening before, about 2017, I remember when I first read the statistics, they're making $200 million a day from oil.
Okay. Unfortunately for us, time is first spent. So I'm going to just allow you a minute to close on this conversation, projecting 2023 and the Pearl of Africa. I'll start with you, Eric.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us with Wekesa. Well, all is not lost. I'm very optimistic that the 700,000 jobs that we had originally 2019, and at the moment, I'm sure we're going to have more jobs if we, of course, work together and synergize. Because at the end of the day, it's a private sector driven, but of course government led. We need to work together to ensure we create the opportunities for these people to invest. But also, as we go into the festive season, I think people need to take precautionary measures. Safety is important. It's around this time that people are reckless. Sometimes reckless on the roads, everywhere. We need to keep safe ahead of 2023. Okay. But also, let's be positive. Government has proper plans, but we need to work together. It is not a one-sided thing.
Okay.
No, I've not seen proper plans in marketing. Government needs to have proper plans in marketing. That's my conclusion as a person. I also believe that we have a great country. We have a great people. We have so many educated young Ugandans. We actually can take this country to another level if we're serious, if we're committed to what we want to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's definitely a deep conversation. It comes down to even you are a stakeholder in this conversation. Even you are a key player in this conversation. So you do your best to market this country, at least for December. Challenge yourself. Write only good things about Uganda to the rest of the world, and you'll see the returns on that investment of opportunity in terms of marketing. This brings us to the end of this conversations. We take a breather and return shortly. Stay with us.